Three,
two,
two,
one,
one,
clap.
clap.
Okay, that
One more time, one more time.
3, 2,
1,
clap.
clap.
Okay. I like the first one better, but yeah, this is fine. We'll sync this up.
I really do think there's some latency there, but you'll figure it out when you
I think
try
there
to
is
sync
some
it up.
latency, but I think as long as we stay between these two claps, it should be fine. So we'll figure it out. So John, it's July already. It's the second half of the year. How are your New Year's resolutions going?
I remember one thing I definitely wanted to do is to run a half marathon, and we're doing pretty well, right? We can
Yeah.
do a 10K no sweat every week, especially if it's like all flat. It's like pretty easy.
Yeah,
I think.
10Ks are fine. I mean, other than the fact that you said no sweat, I think the rest of everything we're on track. Yeah, no sweat. Yeah, 5 minutes in, I'm crying. Okay, but
How about yours?
my resolutions are probably worse than yours. I want to say because I said I'm gonna run 500 miles or 1,000 miles
Oh yeah,
this year.
I remember you're like one mile a day or something.
Yeah, 1,000 kilometers. 1,000 kilometers I wanted to run this year. And
Yeah.
I think I'm at around 100 or 150 miles, which is 200 kilometers, which means in half the year I've achieved 1/5 of my goal.
Yeah.
I don't know what else I told myself, but maybe it's a good thing I forgot.
We promised the audience that we're going to be having guest speakers in our podcast on Two Brown Accents.
Yes, we are going to do that before end of July because we want to have a guest speaker every month, starting the second half of the year, which is now. What do you want to talk about today, John?
Do you think time travel is possible?
That is a great question. As a person whose ideals say, I believe what I see, or I believe, something that's happened, and I personally have never seen time travel happen. So yeah, according to my ideology, yes, time travel is not a thing, but I do personally like to believe that it exists. I want it to exist.
Okay, before we get into the too detailed about this, because we're going to go down some big rabbit hole in this episode, I'll just say it very cleanly, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's possible to travel back in time, but we can definitely travel forward in time. I mean, we're doing it right now. We're traveling forward in time, but I mean, you can travel faster than someone else is forward in time. So if you want to like go 100 years into the future, you can. So that's what I mean when I say time travel is possible.
Yeah. I mean, that one I agree, right? Because if you were to just if we are to just go into outer space right now, time does move differently in different places in the universe. So yeah, if we were to stay in the moon for maybe, I don't know, 10 years, come back, it's not gonna be 10 years on Earth, right? It's gonna be plus or minus. And in fact, if we travel further away into the universe, time's probably gonna move much more differently here. So by the time we come back,
exactly,
maybe 100 years have passed, or maybe we're 100 and only 5 years have passed, right? So we can kind of manipulate how time moves. But
yeah, I think especially the people who never heard of this concept before, this comes from Albert Einstein, like the genius physicist that lives about 100 years ago. He found out that space and time were related. He called it the space-time continuum, and everything is relative to that. So before that, we only had Newtonian physics that determined everything based on a couple of like very simple equations, like how fast something moves. But then that didn't explain how, like precisely how planets moved, because they would use it and try to predict stuff and they would find out that it's not exactly right.
Yeah.
So then they would think like, okay, where's gravity coming from? Like, why is that like one object and another object are attracted to each other? And Einstein figured out that it's actually space and time is actually like a curve in space. Like the heavier the object is, it's like more curved.
Yeah.
So that when you're actually like close to it, you're kind of affected by it, both by gravity, but also by time.
Yeah.
Too.
No, yeah, I get it. And I feel like, this specific episode might not be the most simplest for our audience, because I feel we are going to get into some rabbit holes here. You continue, and then I'm gonna remember what I was going to say.
Because of this gravity and time being related, there is a couple of hacks that exist in the universe that people theorize, the physicists theorize, that we can use to travel through time. Like, number one is to travel really fast. Like, if you travel at the speed of light, like or close to speed of light. By the way, for the people who don't know, speed of light is a fundamental limit in our current universe that you can't travel anything faster than that. Like the fastest thing you can travel is the speed of light. So even though you're traveling, like let's say 99% speed of light, you're still, if you shine like a laser beam from where you're traveling or a flashlight, it'll also travel at the speed of light. So everything is like constant. Speed of light is always constant. It's not like you can add on to it. Like speed of light is like the constant thing.
Yes, nothing in this universe can travel faster than the speed of light. And what that means is, even if you are to send any information or something, right? Let's say right now the sun completely fades away to blackness. It'll take us the speed of light before we on Earth understand that the sun has actually gone. So the distance between the sun and the Earth, it's around, I think it takes 8 minutes at the speed of light. So yeah, if the sun disappears, vanishes, it'll take us 8 minutes before we on Earth actually know that. There's no faster way for us to understand.
So there, because of this limitation, if you imagine if you were somehow able to travel faster than the speed of light, you can technically travel back in time.
Interesting.
But and there's a concept in sci-fi movies that talks about a warp drive, which basically instead of actually using rocket fuel or something to propel a rocket forward, you're actually bending space-time. So you use a warp drive to artificially make more gravity around you, so that instead of like traveling through space, you're actually like warping everything around you. So like you can somehow break this light barrier that way. I mean, it's theorized in sci-fi movies, but it requires like I think like some exotic matter that we never found before, like some dark matter or something that
Sure.
like is just theorized to exist.
Sure. Moving away from the science stuff, let's get back to, just our own personal theories or nothing. Let's not discuss papers or all of these things, right? I want to talk.
What do you want to discuss then?
Yeah. I want to talk about all the different. Okay, let's say time travel were to exist, right? How do you think it's going to be? Do you think that time would be in a loop? Let's say if you were able to move back into the past and you did something, that the future you would also go back into the past and do the same thing. Is it going to be a loop? Or do you think time's going to be more like if you go back into the past, you can actually change what happened, and so you create a new timeline?
Yeah. I mean, that's the many worlds theory, that if you were to make a decision, every decision that you make branches out into a separate reality. So if you were to somehow invent a time machine and go back in time and do something, like if I go back in time and kill my grandfather, it got very dark for a second, but hang on with me.
No, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Go on.
How will my dad be born and how will I be born to have caused that situation, right? So this is called the grandfather paradox.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's the same universe. Like basically, we just diverted into a separate timeline.
Yeah, that specific paradox though has an answer. It's a pretty cool one. So the theory goes: let's say your grandfather gifted you a gun, right? And then you invent a time machine. You go back in time. You kill your grandfather before he gifts you the gun. So now you create a secondary timeline in which there is no grandfather. So there is no father, there is no you, there's no gun, there's no killing, nothing, right? So the first timeline created the second one. But now if you move back into a different timeline, your grandfather was never killed in that one, right? The third timeline. So your grandfather is alive, thereby your dad, thereby you. Your grandfather gifts you a gun. You go back in time. You kill your grandfather. So the fourth universe, again, does not have your grandfather. So every odd universe would have your grandfather gift you a gun. And every even universe, there is no grandfather. So
yeah. Oh, so it's like you're saying it's not technically an infinite universe, but it's like a contained set. Is what you're saying.
In that specific case, yes. But yeah, once you say there's two sets of universes, yeah, the two can branch out into four, can branch out into eight. So yeah, it does end up to be infinity. I agree.
Yeah, actually, this is something I thought about when I was much younger. I think in high school, I was reading some time travel book, and I thought, if you were to make a time machine that travels either back or forward in time, that machine also needs to teleport. Because like let's imagine you just do a time travel like right now, right here, like 1 year back. Or not maybe 1 year back. 1 year back you might end up in the same position.
Yeah.
But like a few days back, you'll be in the middle of space. right? Because the Earth is moving and the sun is also there, right? Like you could be stranded in the middle of space, so you also need to make a like teleportation machine that can put you in the same position. Or I guess you could travel literally 1 year back, and then maybe you'll end up in the same position where you were.
That's wow. I haven't thought of that. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, I agree. If you're making something, I think I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I do think making a teleportation machine is probably much easier than time travel because teleportation is only space, and I think time's a more complicated dimension.
Okay, time travel seems like a very abstract concept. Can you think of anything that can really apply to like current, like our life today, like either engineering, technology, or something that affects us today, like this special relativity, general relativity that can affect us? Because I can think of like one thing, but I wanted to like
No,
understand if
you
you can
go
think of anything.
first. I mean, when you put it, I mean, I have a bunch of things that came to my mind, but you go
So like
first.
one thing that affects us directly today is GPS technology. So Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever maps you use actually use satellites. They use 3 satellites to triangulate where you currently are, but they don't like just get your location. I mean, they get your location, but they get your location by using time, right? Basically, how long a signal takes to propagate from the satellite to
Yeah,
where you
yeah,
are. And if you use 3 at the same time, you can basically triangulate where you are.
that makes sense. Yeah,
But because the satellites are so far up from the Earth and they move at like different speeds, they had to the time on the satellites had to be synchronized with something on Earth, and they had to be running slightly slower. We're talking like very very like small, like I don't know, nanoseconds
hmm,
slower than time on the Earth because their relative movement is
right,
different
right.
than
Yeah,
on
yeah,
Earth.
yeah. Makes
So
sense.
we do actually have this concept of like relativity that we use in current technology.
Ooh, that is interesting. That is good to know. No, I can't think of anything like that. That was just really cool to hear. I'm glad I got to
Hmm.
know. But I did have some closing questions before we ended this podcast.
Okay.
So let's say time travel were real. Would you go back in time, change anything? Would you go forward in time, or
No.
would you? Would you?
No, 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 no.
Would
I think I used to think about this as well. I mean, living 26 years on Earth, I think we all would have some moments where we would go and do differently. But then I realized like that never ends, right? Like if you have some kind of mechanism where you can go and like change something, I don't think you'll ever be satisfied with something. Right? You'd be like, at least I would be very perfectionist,
yeah,
and I would go and like change like every small thing, and that would never end. So
yeah.
I think like it's better to just be content with what happened and focus on what you can control and the future.
Wow, very, very profound and wise, John. Something I wouldn't expect from you. But no, yeah, I wouldn't have put it so well. But yeah, I think it's the same for me. I've thought about changing things, and I've really thought about it. But unlike you, I guess you would not even use the time machine. I would. I totally would.
No, because it never ends. Like, do you
No,
go
no,
back and kill baby Hitler? What if you
no, no,
make like
no.
another World
No, no.
War
Oh, hear me.
worse than World War
No,
Two?
I agree with everything you said. I wouldn't change anything, but this is just me being a little selfish. I'd go back, meet 5 year old me, or maybe 6 year old me, who's really cute. So I get to spend some time, and then obviously nobody in the world knows how I look like right now, so nobody will mistake me for future that kid, and I go spend some, maybe a few minutes with that kid, pat him on the head, be like, "You're gonna have a wonderful life. You be excited for that," and then just walk away. It's like that
You know,
cool
actually,
outro.
I do this too. Like right now, instead of since we don't have this like technology where you can directly go travel back in time, I write notes to myself in the future
Yeah.
where I go back and read it, and then like so I can see like, oh, that's my thought process at the time, and like I can understand because I think that we are different people when we go through life.
Yes.
Right? Like 25-year-old me is gonna be totally different than 50-year-old me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like at least we'll be in separate stages of life,
Yeah.
and I think having the perspective, like for example, like me being a teenager and me one day having kids and raising teenagers, having a perspective and remembering what it was like is very important, I think.
Yeah.
So I do write notes to myself and like so I can communicate with myself in the future.
Yeah, that's kind of cool, and I agree, right? Because in your entire lifetime, there is going to be one specific moment when you're the most risk taking, or when you're the coolest person, or something like that. And it would be nice to know, meet all the different selves you were. and kind of just have a debate or figure out what the best option is for something. A council of Johns. Just discussing.
Oh my goodness, that's so cool.
Just discussing about, hey guys, so this is the agenda for today. Do we want to work or do we not want to work? And then everyone just puts forth their opinion. It would be so cool. The Council of Johns does sound.
I think honestly we might be able to deal with AI, but we'll save that for a future podcast episode. I'll go into details how that's possible.
No, I can already see it. Talking AI with you is just so difficult because you get really into it.
Have we done an AI episode? I don't think we have.
I don't think we need to. Okay, if we are going to do an AI episode, let's do it with a guest because I don't think I can tackle you by myself.
Nice. Okay, yeah, let's end it here.
Yeah, sounds good. I think this was a good episode. I'm Soorya Ramesh.
And I'm John Ravi. And you've been listening to Two Brown Accents.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.